A one-man army who's taken on the might of the establishment and come out triumphant. I'm joined today once again by the man of the match, and if this was a series, Dr. Swamy, by now you'd be man of the series and man of possibly the entire World Cup. Thank you very much for joining me on Hot Pursuit. There were three main cases before the Supreme Court today. One was on the role of P. Chidambaram as finance minister, the other was the plea for cancellation of licenses, and the third for an SIT being formed to monitor what the CBI is doing. Only one of those three demands have been fulfilled. So you're projecting this as a massive victory. The fact is, it's only a partial victory that you've achieved today.
Well, it's a question of how you interpret victory and defeat. As far as the license is concerned, there's no doubt. It's been cancelled, and so it's an outright victory. As far as the CBI inquiry question is concerned, I had asked for the CBI inquiry on the grounds that in the trial court, the trial court is not empowered to order a CBI inquiry. Only the High Court and the Supreme Court can do it, and that's the Supreme Court judgment. Therefore, I have come here for that. I'm a taxpayer, I said to the court, and therefore I want the CBI to assist me. The court then wanted to know whether there was a prima facie basis for doing that. And the court has exactly done that. Instead of ordering the CBI inquiry directly, and I'm telling you today, if they had ordered it today, it would have been a defeat for me, because the trial court has already reached the stage of reserving the orders, and that would have become infructuous. So what the trial court, Supreme Court has done is now empowered the trial court that you can order the CBI inquiry as an ad hoc measure. And that's exactly what I need. If tomorrow, if on the 4th, the trial court finds Mr. Chidambaram worthy of being summoned, and therefore therefore I conduct the case, I need the CBI assistance, because they've got all the files. That's I would consider that as a super victory, not meeting of my demands.
The cancellation of 122 licenses has led to an outcry in corporate India, and the customers too will have to pay a lot more, because earlier the government's policy was first come first serve. Spectrum was allocated cheaply. Now there will be another auction. Companies will have to pay much more than they paid previously. Estimates are it could be up to 1 lakh crore rupees. Naturally, the telecom companies will charge the customers for that extra money that they've paid for spectrums. As a consequence of your victory, the telecom customer, that's me, will have to pay more.
Well, that's the propaganda of the companies. You don't have to believe them. The fact of the matter is that when they got the license cheaply, they sold it to the other companies. That's not only Swan and Unitech, but Tata sold it to Docomo. Then somebody sold it to the Russians. Somebody sold it to Vodafone. So all of them have made a huge killing on selling the license which was given cheaply. That's number one. Number two, take 3G. There has been no enhancement of the tariff despite the fact that it was an auction. So therefore I would say that please cough up. Of course they have a problem. They may have given a bribe. Now they are going to have to pay double, because they had whatever they paid plus what they have to pay now. But I would say that you have to have this punitive thing, so that in future such things don't happen, and the government should say that you cannot raise the prices.
But this impacts investor confidence. The likes of Telenor from Norway, Etisalat from Abu Dhabi, they've come in, invested millions of dollars in the Indian telecom sector. After what happened with Enron in the power sector, no foreign company came in and invested in power. Telecom has been one of India's sunshine sectors. As a consequence of this verdict, foreign investors are jittery.
Well, they should be jittery, because we don't want the word to get around that you can get anything you want in India by bribery, that India is purchasable. Look at the transparency index. We are now down to 95 number. I would like to tell you that there are lots of countries which have very strict laws on this. Take for instance what's happening with Huawei in the United States. You have to have first of all a clean country. That is the first requirement. And if foreigners cannot bear our cleanliness, they need not come.
These are not the foreign companies that paid bribes to Raja and to the government.
They did.
They came in later.
No.
As a consequence of the disinvestment that was done by these telecom companies.
Take Etisalat. They paid 8 times the amount for the equivalent of a license.
Who, a private firm,
yes,
who they thought had purchased this spectrum in an absolutely transparent and open and legal fashion. Let me quote to you what Uninor has said. They put out a statement. They say, we've been unfairly treated as we simply followed the government process which we were asked to. We are shocked to see that Uninor is being penalized for faults that the court has found in the government process.
Yes, of course it has to be. Do you think that the Telenor was a spring chicken? They did not know that Unitech was a real estate company, didn't have a single tower, didn't have any equipment. How did
but they had spectrum. These people bought that spectrum.
So you should,
they didn't know.
They should have known.
They're saying that they did not know that the government process was flawed. Why should they be penalized?
There is no question of government process. They should have immediately suspect that something had gone wrong. That if a company in their own country, no real estate company would have got a telecom license. Here is a real estate company gets a telecom license. Then there is this Swan that they also get a telecom license. They should be and as far as Telenor is concerned and Etisalat is concerned, they have no right to complain. They shouldn't have got it in the first place because they were on the blacklist of the Home Ministry.
But does this not make India seem like a banana republic where decisions get taken, policies get announced, spectrum is allocated, and then all of a sudden, several years later, the entire spectrum is cancelled, all the investments are nullified?
Well, in a banana republic, let me tell you, the courts are also purchased. Here, unfortunately for them, the courts couldn't be purchased. So therefore, we are not a banana republic. We are a country, democratic country, trying to become truly democratic. And today, all Indians are holding their head in high esteem because we cannot be purchased. That's the message.
Senior lawyer Majid Memon calls this a miscarriage of justice. And let me quote to you why he says this. He says, even those companies that did not depart from rules and regulations are being monetarily impacted by this abrupt cancellation.
Of course they will be monetarily impacted. They were already monetarily impacted when they gave the bribe. So now they have to pay a double bribe in the sense that they have to pay the penalty for what they did was wrong. And as far as Memon is concerned, he's a very brilliant lawyer. I have great respect for him. But he is representing the accused. So I would be very suspicious of what he says.
Does this not impact India's image as an international investment destination? We're already seeing investor confidence in the Indian growth story pumel, and as a consequence of a verdict like this, the limited FII inflow, the FDI inflow that we have coming into our economy, there could be a flight of capital.
On the contrary, I think all honest companies will now feel encouraged to come. I have heard myself, many companies in the United States saying we can't compete with this corruption. They are in fact saying that we can't compete with European companies because they can give bribes, whereas the American companies, because of their Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, are not able to give. So I think today we will have a much wider canvas of truly honest companies coming to India.
The government has now reacted to this verdict. Kapil Sibal in a press conference has said that the government has also struck down the first come first serve policy. He says that is a policy of the NDA of which you are now a part.
Not yet, but almost.
They've announced that you will be a part of the NDA. Right. So they're saying that policy was formulated by the NDA. If we are responsible, the NDA, including you, is as much to blame.
Oh, well, that's a wonderful thing. Kapil Sibal, of course, has become now famous for saying very stupid things like zero loss. Now, what has he to say when the Supreme Court has quoted favorably the CAG and the loss of 1,76,000 crores? The fact of the matter is, well, if it was an NDA policy, you didn't have brains to apply. NDA had followed a certain policy towards the minorities. Are you following the same policy towards the minorities? Why couldn't you change this policy if it was flawed? And who's stopping you from prosecuting the NDA? I didn't stop them from prosecuting the NDA. They are people who knew where the gravy train was, and they got with their hands caught in the till. That is the problem. Mr. Sibal has no credibility at all.
No, because the government still says that this doesn't in any way determine the personal culpability of either the then Finance Minister P. Chidambaram or the Prime Minister. There was a process which was laid down. That process was not properly followed by a particular minister. He is being found guilty, and therefore for Dr. Swamy to blame either the Prime Minister or the Finance Minister of that time is not fair.
Well, first of all, let me tell you that this Kapil Sibal is committing contempt of court by misquoting the Supreme Court judgment. First of all, the judgment has not been signed. My wife, who's an advocate, is waiting there for the Justice Ganguly to put his signature. So I don't know which judgment he's quoting. The fact of the matter is that the process was that Chidambaram and Raja will decide together. And the records show that Chidambaram was the senior partner and Raja was the junior partner. If Raja is in jail, Chidambaram ought to be in jail too. And therefore, it is wrong to say that the process was flawed. It was clear in the mind of Mr. Chidambaram, in his letters, in his recorded minutes, that he knew what he was doing and he was advising Raja what to do. That's the key point that comes out of the
Because the allegation that's now being leveled directly against you is that you're doing this because of your personal vendetta against P. Chidambaram, who hails from the same state that you do. You don't target the Prime Minister. If there is culpability, there is culpability also at the level of the Prime Minister. When we interviewed you, you said, yes, Chidambaram is to blame, PMO officials are to blame, but not the Prime Minister. Now that argument just sounds very dubious.
Well, first of all, I would advise you to read the Supreme Court judgment of 1992 called the Bhajanlal case, where the Supreme Court has very clearly said that even if you have personal animus, if you produce documents, that's what matters to the Supreme Court. Personal animus is of no consequence.
So you are admitting that there is personal animus?
There is no, even if there was. See, now listen.
Everybody knows that there is personal animosity and that's fueling a lot of your agenda.
I don't know Chidambaram from Adam, I can tell you that. But I have no social contact with them. I never had social contact with them. I had never had a friendship with them. So there's no question of any animus in this. The fact of the matter is that when Raja went to jail, Karunanidhi said that because I'm a Brahmin and he's a Dalit, that's why I'm doing it. Now these are easy charges to make. The important thing is what documents I have produced, number one. Number two, as far as Prime Minister is concerned, I have said number of times, I said it today, it's a collective failure. The Prime Minister was not empowered to decide the price. The NDA government had empowered the Finance Minister and the Telecom Minister, and they then went and reported to him. That's there in the minutes.
As leader of the team, he is as culpable as his Finance Minister, yet you never target him, and you forever target the Finance Minister of that time.
He is guilty of malfeasance in office, but he is not guilty of criminal liability.
You're now taking your charge one step further and saying that Sonia Gandhi has personally benefited.
Yes.
She took away 60% of the money.
Yes.
Now, show me the proof. What's your evidence? How do you make that charge?
I will show the proof, but not to you. I'll show it to the court, because you are in no position to assess the validity of that proof. You see, I have been said this from the day one. I had no proof against Raja, I had no proof against Kandimuri, I had no proof against Chidambaram. This has been coming on from time to time. I'm a singleton here in that sense that I'm a private individual. I don't have the CBI. I don't have to produce any proof.
No, but you level a very serious charge. In any other country, you would have been hauled over the coals by the court. You're saying that Sonia Gandhi has made 60% of the money without offering an iota of proof.
I don't have to. Because this is a matter which is so sensitive and is given on such confidence that the only place I can submit such proof is in the court.
So you're saying you've got this proof? Do you have this proof?
Absolutely, I have this proof. And I'll prove it also.
No, why don't you give us a sense of what proof you have? Because you're leveling this massive allegation against Sonia Gandhi.
I don't have to. Because I have, and I make these allegations when people ask me questions. How far does your trail go? Who's next? These are the questions I keep getting asked. I answer these questions. But if you ask me proof, I will say the proof, the only agency I'll give the proof to is the Supreme Court.
You know, because one of the other demands that was made by Prashant Bhushan was that there be an SIT to supervise and monitor what the CBI is doing. The court has struck that down. In some senses, that indicates that unlike you, the court believes that the CBI is actually doing a good job.
But I didn't argue this matter. And I will tell you one thing, personally, I know the officers of CBI. They are men of great quality. If you just freed them from this fear of their careers being wrecked, and that was the fear that Mr. Chidambaram was exercising over them because the confidential records was in his hands. I have no complaints with the CBI. I myself want the CBI to assist me. Here is the CBI coming to the Supreme Court and saying Chidambaram is honest, and I'm saying please ask the CBI to assist me in this thing. I have absolutely no complaint about the CBI. This is not something that I argued. Mr. Prashant Bhushan argued, and partially his prayer has been met because the CVC has been asked to monitor the CBI.
Because first we saw that there was an order which said that the sanction for prosecution must come within 3 or 4 months. Today, 122 licenses have been cancelled. We use some cricketing analogies to take that further. You're now on a hat-trick. And Saturday is when we'll know whether you'll strike a hat-trick or not.
Yes, I expect one of the two things to happen on Saturday. Either the court summons Chidambaram, or the court then asks a CBI to investigate my charges and file a report before he gives the final order. Either of them, Chidambaram will have to resign.
And in either of those cases, do you think that the Home Minister then is left with no choice But he has to step down.
Absolutely.
Because the opposition will make his life miserable.
Not only that, you cannot have a free and fair investigation by the CBI when Mr. Chidambaram is the Home Minister.
Mr. Chidambaram doesn't control the CBI.
He doesn't have to, but he doesn't have to. The IPS is from the cadre of the Home Ministry, and the confidential records of promotion and transfers are decided.
So let me get the paraphrasing right. You're hoping that on Saturday, one of the two options that you mentioned come true.
Yes.
Chidambaram steps down.
Yes.
And then, if the Home Minister is gone, the opposition will then go for the jugular demand the Prime Minister.
No, I will go for the jugular demand of the entire government resigning and none of the ministers being brought back. And better still, let there be an election.
And that really is what this game has been about from the first day. That you are doing this at the behest of the allies, of your allies and of the opposition to try and bring this government down. That's been the game plan from the beginning.
As I told you, Supreme Court a number of times has said motive doesn't matter. Have you assembled the documents?
So let's be upfront. Why don't you admit that your motive was all this while to bring this government down?
No, my motive is not only that. I am a politician and I certainly know that this is a politically bad government for India. The Prime Minister is unable to function. He's a good man, but he is unable to function.
And you're hoping possibly that you could be made the next telecom minister as a consequence of all your efforts by the NDA if they were to come to power?
I have already been a very senior minister. Telecom is too small for me.
So you're hoping for bigger things. Maybe you want the Home Ministry or the Finance Ministry, which is why you've been targeting these people.
No, I mean, listen, it's not going to come out of this. I mean, I don't think this country ever goes by merit in politics. If merit was there, then I was the one who was the obvious choice for Prime Minister in the 1977, because I was the one who fought the emergency. But I wasn't even made a cabinet minister. They offered me a junior ministership, which I just...
So you're now hoping that not telecom, but something much bigger.
No, it's not quite so. Listen,
that's what you get as the political bargain for having fought this case.
May I tell you, there's no such thing as hoping. If you, in my position, the stature I have, the experience I have, either I get it because I command it, or I don't get it. There is no question of hoping. Hoping is useless here in politics. As far as this issue is concerned, it's got nothing to do with politics. It's a stinking corruption which will ruin. I need to have come back from abroad. I came here in the 60s, late 60s, because I felt India should be improved. It is that what I am doing. Every part of my politics shows that personal gain has been the least concern for me. If there was, by now I would have adjusted and been minister for long years.
Do you think the Supreme Court's verdict impacts what the trial court will do on Saturday?
No, it has no impact at all, except it creates an atmosphere that this whole license drama 2G is a sordid episode which the Supreme Court has disapproved thoroughly and therefore cancelled the licenses. But the trial court judge is a very independent judge, and he will go according to what my documents are, and whatever he decides is fine with me. Just as I said earlier this morning to Headlines News, whatever the Supreme Court decides will be fine. Now, Supreme Court has gone one step further than I thought it would. They have actually empowered the trial court to order a CBI.
You've now got the sobriquet of being the most dangerous man in the country.
For whom?
Does that rest easy on your shoulders?
Well, it depends on for whom. I'm certainly a very dangerous man for anti-nationals. I'm dangerous for terrorists. I'm dangerous for those who are corrupt. But I think if you go by, I don't know what indexes you go by. If you were to go by the educated class, they're tweeting nowadays, I would say 99% are supporting me today. And I don't know where I go to parties, I find people welcoming me. I'm on a plane, I'm on a train, people want my autographs, people want to be posed. I was surprised that the security personnel who examine your luggage in the airports, they want to pose photographs with me. I have not found anybody thinking me dangerous, but they think I'm the hope of India, who alone can do many things.
And you're hoping that if we were to meet at the same time on Saturday, you would have scalped the country's Home Minister as well.
I certainly hope. I'd be certainly disappointed if I don't do that.
Well, India watches with rapt attention. For joining me on Hot Pursuit this evening, thank you very much, Dr. Subramanian Swamy.